Hello, Eastridge Church of Christ, and welcome to a new podcast that we are calling Eastridge Connection. This is just one more avenue for communication that we're seeking to roll out and to try as a church family, just wanting to remain connected to one another during these difficult times. You guys know that until further notice, our Sunday morning services are going to be live streamed. You are encouraged to plug in and to connect on Sunday mornings at 10:45. If you go to our website at eastridge.cc, there is a button that you click and it'll take you right to the live streaming. Of course, as soon as the services are over, that gets kicked over to our YouTube channel as well. This podcast is just one more way for us to connect. Who knows? Maybe in the future, after this storm is over, maybe we utilize this as a way to interact as a church family. I know Ryan has talked about specifically, and even the equipment that we have is based off of Ryan's plans to be able to do something similar to this for the family ministry. This is something that the ministry team here at Eastridge is going to maintain at least weekly during this time of social distancing. And so this week is going to be more informative than anything else. In the weeks that are ahead of us, I envision that we'll talk more about biblical truths and biblical principles as the ministers share and interact and do some Bible study. I think we have some opportunities in front of us as a church family to be able to just consider what God is doing, what God has done, what God is doing, and what God can do through us as a fellowship. We have, since the very first Sunday of 2020, we've been investing into and talking about loving God and loving others. And even amidst all of this, God is opening some opportunities for us to be able to do just that. Kind of along those lines, I want to encourage you, reach out and connect to your brothers and sisters in Christ here at Eastridge through calls, through texts, through emails. Stay plugged in and connected. I sent out a study guide this morning. Think of it as a small groups guide that comes weekly that is building off the Sunday morning message. And also, just along the lines of think about contributing financially, and how that is a way for us to continue to be faithful to our call here as believers at the Eastridge Church of Christ. And so God designed opportunities that we have in front of us during this time, and we're trying to make the most of what God has in front of us. I have with me two guys who have between them more degrees than a thermometer. Dr. Ken Ford is a medical doctor, and he is also a shepherd here at the Eastridge Church of Christ. And then Dr. Ryan Smith,
different kind of doctor,
is my partner in crime, but is also a PhD in marriage and family therapy. He serves as the family life minister here at Eastridge. And God's timing in being able to have these guys who are a part of the same church family engaged in the roles that they're a part of, to be able to give us some information and to be able to help us through this very, very difficult and tenuous time as a church family. And so our goal today is just to talk about some of the current concerns, its impact upon our church, upon our community, our nation, our world, and also center ourselves biblically as a fellowship of believers. Our anchor passage today is found in 2 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all of our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort that we ourselves have received from God. I believe that to be simply a timely verse for us right now as a church family. And so we're going to begin with Dr. Ken Ford, who is going to speak primarily from the medical perspective, and then we'll kick things over to Ryan, who's going to follow with the clinical psychological perspective.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I wanted to not repeat everything that you've heard, everything that you've learned about the COVID-19 coronavirus, and really hit what I think is most important for you to remember. The reason that this is truly a big deal. The number one question that I get asked by folks in the parking lot in the church is, Ken, is this actually a big deal? And yes, it is. It is a big deal. And there's a reason for that, and that's what I want to stress. And I want to try to show you a couple of visuals. I'm a radiologist, so I'm all about pictures and visuals. And so I want to use a couple of what I think are the most helpful visuals that I've seen. But I wanted you to see, first and foremost, what is different about this coronavirus compared to the influenza virus, even the influenza swine flu, H1N1 type A flu, is two things. Number one, its transmission abilities. It is very contagious, 2 to 3 times more contagious than the common flu. And we all know the common flu is pretty darn contagious. Secondly, its mortality rate. That combination of those two things is the reason everybody's freaking out. Now, I want our congregation to see this. This is the data from the Chinese outbreak of this virus. And what we are seeing is the mortality rate by decade age group. So we start with kids over here, 0 to 9, 10 to 19, 20 to 29, 30 to 39, 40 to 49, 50 to 59. Now, look at the size of those bar histograms. We've got in the 80 plus age range, in China, in their experience, 18% mortality if they become infected with this virus.
Wow.
70 to 79 age range, 9.8%. 60 to 69, 4.6%, nearly 5%. So if you are 60 and above, this represents a true risk. You're talking about something that is up to 3 times as contagious as the flu. But remember that the mortality rate, the overall mortality rate for the flu is, 0.02 to 0.05%. This one's running 2 to 4% overall. But if you're in those higher age ranges, it is serious. It's a big deal. Now, you've heard a lot about mitigation factors. This is a new virus. We do not have a treatment. They're testing all kinds of stuff right now, but we don't have a treatment. No one's immune yet. We have no immunity. So it is a novel virus that's highly contagious that has hit our shores. All 50 states are now involved with cases. Now, if we did nothing, no mitigation, no social distancing, this is the curve that we can expect, an exponential infection curve. The number of people that would become infected in the United States if we did nothing, if we've got 350 million, then we're projecting 100 to 150 million Americans. Now, remember the death rate was 2 to 4%-ish. You do the math on that. That's horrific. Now, there is a horizontal line here. Here's the number of cases daily. Here's time. Now, there is a horizontal line here. That is the capacity, the number of people that our healthcare system can take care of. And you can see that this graph hugely exceeds what our healthcare system can take care of. So you're literally talking about, if we did nothing, very sick people, that there is no place to put them. We've never been in that situation before in the United States, so it's unprecedented. So what we want to do is we want to shift the curve, decrease the curve through mitigation. Mitigation is social distancing. It is limiting the spread. It is spread by respiratory droplets, either breathed out or have come to rest on surfaces, and then you come and touch it and touch your face. So you notice we're trying to lead by example. We're spread out as far as we can and still fit in the camera, We're trying to not touch our faces.
I touched my face three times
yes,
right
you
when
did.
we first
Yes,
started,
you did.
and I looked at you every
It's
time.
so hard.
Yeah,
It's so hard.
I'm not good at this.
Those are the two things, social distancing, not coming into contact with infected droplets. So if we are successful as a country in jumping on this and social distancing and mitigation, we can decrease the curve to where we do not exceed our ability to care for these patients. And that's what we're attempting to do. Now there's good news, lest I scare you to death. The good news is that it actually works. China jumped on it, dramatically decreased their infections. Now they're getting in control. Taiwan had experience from H1N1 infection, and they already knew how to do social distancing. They already had a stockpile of PPE and respirators. They were able, there's only like 50 cases in Taiwan. They're the next door neighbor of China.
Mm-hmm.
They've been able to control it through mitigation. So we need to take seriously social isolation in the sense of not being out when you don't need to be out. It's not okay to go to gatherings of people. This is serious business. It is our social responsibility to blunt this curve so that we can take care of people who need help, so that there will be a respirator available to put them on. Because the way this disease works, it starts with a fever and it goes to your chest. It's a lung infection. It goes to your chest. We need to be able to put those people on respirators. We need to be able to support them. So that's why we're doing what we're doing as a church. And that's, I think, the most important points. Here's just one last graphic to show you the difference in the infection rate between doing nothing. One person leads to 3, which leads to this many people infected in just 30 days, compared to what we're attempting to do, only 3 people or 2.5 people infected in 30 days. So those are the most important medical things that I think the folks need to know.
Okay, very good. Ryan, what about from a clinical viewpoint?
So first of all, we say clinical. My job is as a therapist, and I work specifically in marriage and family therapy. I've yet to get Dr. Ford to take my medical advice, although I keep trying. For some reason, he pushes back on me when I try to give medical advice. So my advice is going to be slightly different than Ken's very sound advice. In fact, Ken said 2 words that I wrote down on my notepad because in my world, they're words that I try to treat. You said, what are we trying to do? Social isolation.
Yes.
I see people in my office because they're suffering from social isolation.
Right.
And so what we're up against psychologically, what we're up against from a relational perspective, these words, socialite, don't go places, don't see people. If you're one of those people who's in a situation where you've got a loving family at home who's all super connected and wants to spend a lot of time together, then probably, especially the early stages of this, have been a nice vacation. But if you're somebody who already struggles with social isolation, you're somebody who doesn't feel all that connected, and your world exists outside of your home, we have just really hampered the ability for those people to feel a sense of connectedness and a sense of peace. And to that end, if I just described you, I would encourage you to exercise the digital communication that we have access to in this culture. Anybody who's talked to me for more than 2 or 3 minutes knows I'm not a huge fan of social media.
Yeah, that's why I was smiling.
Are you smiling at that, right? Because I'm telling people to use social media.
You didn't do a dissertation on social media, did you?
I did, and the results were not this. So I'm telling people that utilize these ways of communicating with each other. So whether it's FaceTime, first of all, phone calls and text messages are great. Where I struggle, culturally, we've gotten so used to the text. Mm-hmm. A phone call, you kind of have to be either old or a crazy person to place a phone call with the intention of speaking to another human being. Right. I want to encourage you in the midst of this crisis to get past that. Pick up the phone and call people. If you're tempted to text a friend and see how they're doing, pick up the phone and call them.
FaceTime with them.
FaceTime even better because you get some face-to-face contact, and you may have to hop in the shower first. Which you may not have done in a couple of days if you're practicing social isolation. So there's a lot of good advantages to utilizing some of the digital communication that we have access to. For the rest of us, so that's speaking specifically to those people who might already be struggling with a sense of social isolation. For the rest of us, there's a difference between anxiety and fear. Anxiety is clinical. Anxiety is something we want to treat. Anxiety is a belief in maybe a hypothetical issue, stressor. It may be an anxiety, may be thinking irrationally about something that has real origins. Fear is the tangible response to a stressor. All right, so the analogy that I give is, fear is I see a snake and so I won't go out in the front yard. Anxiety is there might be a snake and so I won't go out in the front yard. Do you see the difference in those two? This is not an anxiety moment in our culture. This is a fear moment. And I say that because we have so stigmatized the word anxiety that people believe and truly believe that they are not supposed to feel it on any level. In a moment like this, where there's something tangible, there's something real, you're supposed to feel a level of fear, a level of what you may experience as anxiety. And so I say that not to sound super depressing, but because if there's someone listening to us have this conversation who thinks, my anxiety's through the roof, my first reaction as a therapist is, well, yeah. The culture's in a weird place and the economy is struggling and we don't know what's going to happen over the course of the next week or 10 days. This thing's happening so quickly. Ken and I, we had I've described it as a different philosophical view as to what happens next from two separate locations.
It's amazing what you might call that when you're on the wrong end of it.
Right, well, that's what I call it. Yeah, when you lose, that's what you reframe it as. But you and I were having a back and forth about what our steps should be as a church.
Right.
And I was adamantly opposed to what we were doing at 10 a.m.
Right.
By 4,
No.
that had changed.
Just a new one.
But 4 o'clock, the world had changed.
It's called a paradigm shift.
It is called a paradigm shift. It's also called recognizing that one of us is a medical doctor and the other one's a therapist. But regardless, the point is things had changed so quickly that it created. So I say that because if you're feeling
So you almost don't have a foundation to stand on.
exactly. If you are experiencing anxiety in this moment, the first thing I want you to do is let out a deep breath and tell yourself it is okay that you're feeling that sense of anxiety. So giving yourself permission to feel it may be the first step towards alleviating it. So give yourself permission to feel it. Second, I want to remind anybody in this moment what I remind anybody when they're in trauma or in their high stress situations. Don't try to solve a problem right now. Don't try to solve the problem right now. Right now, focus on what you can control and take things one thing at a time. So yesterday, my children and I watched Frozen 2. I'm guessing you've seen Frozen 2. You have daughters in the house. I'm guessing you have not seen Frozen 2.
No, I have not.
Do you know the song Do the Next Right Thing?
Okay.
I was watching that yesterday and I thought,
Are you going to sing it for us?
I'm going to sing it, ready? I'm kidding, I'm not. I thought when I heard that song, I thought, okay, that's the message I want to relay to people.
Okay.
Just do the next right thing. Make a meal tonight and enjoy some family time. Pick up the phone and call somebody. Open up your FaceTime app and FaceTime somebody. Don't worry about trying to resolve. Some of us are panicking because our kids are at home and they're used to being at school. And so we're not sure what we're going to do. You don't have to have a rock solid school.
Kind of one foot in front of the other.
Yes, you don't have to have a locked down, okay, from 8 to 8:05 we're doing this, from 8:05 to 8:10 we're doing this. But a lot of people feel like that's the expectation. Right now, just try to get things moving functionally today.
Right.
Try to get today under control and then we'll figure it out one step at a time. I also say when it comes to moments of fear and anxiety, and you've heard me preach, you didn't hear me because I was preaching because you weren't here because that's the only time I preached. But I preached a sermon on fear recently, and the takeaway from the sermon was to let our fear motivate us into action, and motivate us into holy action, and motivate us into wholesome action. What that looks like for you and your family may be different from what it looks like for me and mine. But if you're experiencing fear right now, I strongly encourage you to allow your fear to motivate you into healthy, wholesome, godly action. I know you're going to talk about that in just a minute. The last thing I want to mention in terms of family life, and I got one more point I want to mention. Talk to your kids about this. If you've got kids in the house, they know something weird is going on.
Yeah.
They understand that the culture's in a weird place. Don't shield them from the conversation. And I walk you through how I had this conversation with my 8-year-old. I told him there's a virus that's going around. It's a new virus, and so it's scary, and it's particularly dangerous for certain people. And so as a country, we're working together to try to make sure it doesn't spread, so that's why we're staying home more than normal. Make sense? So very plain English, I'm not hiding anything, but I also don't need to go into mortality rates. I don't need to talk about the specifics of the issue. The other thing I will say is, us adults are consuming media because it's changing so fast. If you've got kids in the house, please don't have Fox News on 24 hours a day. Please don't have CNN on 24 hours a day, because you're seeing the worst situations imaginable. You're seeing medical tents, you're seeing body bags in some circumstances. Don't let the news be the silent picture in the corner, because they're going to see things and they may ask about it, but they may not. So let Frozen 2 be on for a while. And then from there, get your updates later. And the last thing I want to say is this. There is a mentality that I think all of us as parents, and Ken, you've raised kids, Jason, you're still raising 30 or 40 of them. For me, we're still in the thick of it, and there's a phrase that April and I try really hard to implement when life gets hard and when the to-do list gets heavy. We try to turn our have-tos into get-tos. I have to take care of my kids in this moment, but I'm so blessed to be able to take care of my kids in this moment, because as Ken, I know you can attest, these moments don't last very long.
Don't blink.
They're out of the house before you know it. I'm lucky enough to have this moment where I'm able to shelter my family in place and to love on them and to embrace them. So turn your have-tos into get-tos. You have to deal with your kids being home a lot. You have to deal with being at home more than normal, with cooking more than normal. You know what that gives you the ability to do? To remind yourself, or maybe to see for the first time, that your kids' sports leagues don't really matter. They're not that important.
No.
To all the things that you filled your schedule with, the to-do list stuff, the things that you think are vital, the things that without them you feel like I don't even know who I am in this moment. Those are things that you don't have to miss them. You get to miss them to reset our priorities to what I have a feeling you're going to talk about here in just a minute, which is to set our priorities back where they belong.
It's not all bad to hit the pause button on our crazy.
I said this to my wife yesterday. I hope at the end of this, I hope you walk out of this experience with families who are more connected, whose value system is more properly ordered, based on what they've been forced to focus on. And finally, I say, we're not being asked to do much. You're talking about social distancing, social isolation, stay away from public places. I made this comment on a podcast we did a couple of days ago, but my grandfather was called into active military service to fight overseas. I'm being called to sit on my couch for a couple of weeks. I think I can do that. So I want to keep it in perspective. My job right now is to do what I can for my country, for my community, for the people that I love and care about, and that is to keep myself isolated to the degree that I protect the people around me. I've got neighbors who would be very sensitive to this, and it is my job to not go and do things so that those people can exist. So that's it. Jason, I'll hand the rest of it over to you, bud.
Last Saturday night, I called a friend of mine who's I think I may have told you this a little bit earlier today. A friend of mine who's a minister up in the Panhandle, and just to ask him what sort of changes they were making as a church, and because I knew that at least for last Sunday, the decisions had been made here at Eastridge for us to have one service, and certain parameters as far as who was going to be and who was not going to be, and that sort of thing. And so I called a friend of mine who's a minister up in the Panhandle, and he said, "Look, man, we're not changing anything at all. All we're doing is stocking up on ammo and toilet paper." And
you can sell one of those later.
Yeah, right. And the same guy called me Monday and said, "Everything's changed for us."
That's it.
And I am very grateful for an eldership who is doing the best they can with what we've got right now, and I am grateful to be a part of a church that has an eldership that is leading beautifully right now, even though they are spinning a whole lot of plates. And so that's really a part of what we're trying to do, is just do the best we can with what we've got. God's people have always been called to trust in God. God has proven himself faithful time and time again, not only throughout history, but if we're just paying attention, he's proved himself faithful time and time in our lives as well. The truth of the call of God to not be afraid, over and over within Scripture, Some estimates of right around 365 times in the Bible. Don't be afraid. Do not be afraid in one form or another. That's one for every day of the year. Do not be afraid. Trust God. God's faithful. God brings calm. God brings peace to his people. And at the same time, for us to recognize that as a people, that we are called to bring calm and to bring peace. And there are some opportunities I think that we have right now as Christians, as believers, as a church family, to bring glory to God, to shine bright for God, to minister to others in a faithful and in a relevant way, to love God and to love others, whether that looks like your own individual Bible study at home that maybe you haven't done that well with in ever, or to be a person of prayer, recognizing that God wants us to rely upon him and trust in him, and that's how God brings about calm and peace within us. And maybe to bring things together with this anchor passage one more time, just to read it aloud, and then maybe to kick it to get you guys one more time. Just any final thoughts or closing thoughts or anything like that, and then we'll bring things to a conclusion. But these beautiful words from Paul in 2 Corinthians 1 verses 3 and 4. Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. He is the Father of compassion, not only calling us to be a compassionate people, but he's compassionate to us. He's the God of all comfort, which is something that maybe right now we're aware of our need of comfort. God is the Father of compassion, the God of all comfort, and he comforts us so that we can comfort others. Ministry opportunities in front of us, if we'll just open our eyes and seek to be faithful to the calling that we have in Christ Jesus. So, Ken, any final thoughts? Not just from a medical perspective, but even as a shepherd.
I think those are great thoughts. What I hear both of you guys saying is, don't waste a good crisis.
That's great.
Don't waste a good crisis. And the church has always grown and thrived when in crisis, when under oppression, when under persecution. That's when the church has grown the most historically. And what I see is all the great lessons we've had about 2020 being a year where we really want to be known as a church who loves God and loves others. And then this happens. What an opportunity for our church to put that into action with each other, with the community, and not only strengthen our bond as a church with each other, but strengthen our faith.
Good.
For this to be an opportunity for us in that moment of vulnerability, in that moment of uncertainty about at least this world, that we do learn to lean on God. We do learn to trust God. We do learn to pray and receive that peace that transcends all understanding that's promised to us. And God is looking at this a whole lot like Jesus was looking at the Lazarus passing. The story of Jesus and Lazarus. I mean, Jesus cared. He wept. He felt the pain that they were feeling in the loss of Lazarus. But he also knew more. He had a perspective that was much greater than anyone's perspective on earth. So he knew that death was going to serve a purpose and that it was going to be okay and that he was going to raise Lazarus. And I think that we have to realize that God is in this with us.
Yep.
He's feeling our fear. He understands our fear. Jesus experienced it. And he's here to comfort us. And with that comfort that we receive, then we turn that back and give that to someone else. So, that's what we do right now.
Beautiful.
That's what Christians do.
Beautiful. Ron?
I will simply say that you mentioned churches handling this in different ways. the irony in that statement, or maybe just the application of that statement, we haven't mentioned this, but literally in the next room is another preacher from out of town recording his sermon for Sunday.
That's right.
So that he's going to video broadcast to his congregation on Sunday. As we're recording this podcast, there's a preacher. So we're all trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
We're all trying to figure out what happens next. So I'll leave you, from my perspective, with this. It is not uncommon for me to work clinically with people who have a great deal of fear for what comes next. And they struggle with the idea of confidence. They want confidence in the future. And where we start is redefining what that means. Confidence does not mean I know what's going to happen. Confidence means I know I can handle it, whatever it is. It's not that I have a blueprint as to what's going to take place or have a roadmap as to what's going to take place. Confidence is I'm confident that I can handle whatever comes next, even if I don't know what it is. And the ultimate level of confidence is I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I can handle it because I understand that God's in control. And if I understand that entire sentence, everything we're about to experience has a whole new sense of peace, a whole new sense of calm. And I will echo, Ken, your words that I'm going to steal to every person I do video counseling with over the course of the next couple of weeks. Don't waste a good crisis. This is a moment to reset. It's a moment to reprioritize. And please, I'm begging you, if you can hear my voice, take it. Take this moment. Come out of it better. If you don't come out of it in a better place, then it was just a waste of time. If you can come out of it in a better place, then what an amazing, fantastic blessing this moment in our history is.
Yeah, I mean, that's how cancer can be a blessing. That's how tragedy can be a blessing, is that you grow from it.
Yeah, that's right.
Your faith is strengthened. You become a deeper person, a tool that's been sharpened by God to then minister to others.
Oh, I love it.
Well, we've been talking about the idea of vision, and certainly God's the one that gives us the ability to be able to look forward and to be able to anticipate and to try to see things from his perspective. But to be able to slow things down a little bit and to have some clarity in this moment as individuals, as those who are a part of a church family, and as those who are just living life, to slow things down a little bit, to recognize what's important, because there are a lot of things that are in front of us right now that we recognize are a priority that maybe they weren't quite so clear last week. And to recognize the truth of God in all of this, and for us to, if we can recognize that God doesn't have any limits except the ones that we place on him, then to try to get out of the way and just see what God does.
Don't put him in a box.
Good.
Don't put God in a box.
That's right.
All good.
We are going to do something similar next week as well. This week again, information, but there's also some transformation here. I am so grateful for what you guys have brought to the table, and for this avenue that we have. Be looking for another podcast next week and the week after that, and we'll just see what God does in and through all of this. And before we shut things down for the night, Ken, I'd be honored if you'd lead us in a word of prayer.
Be happy to. Audrey, thank you for your great camera work.
Amen.
Let's pray. Lord, we are scared. This is weird and strange to us. Nothing that as a country we've really been through quite like this, at least in our memories as a society. But Lord, what an opportunity for the church to shine. What an opportunity for the church to grow. What an opportunity to spread your love and your kindness, your hope to those who are hungry for it, for those who need it. Lord, I pray that first and foremost, you would protect our flock from this infection, and that you would protect our country and our world, and that we might get it in control. And Lord, I just pray we don't lose a single soul here on this earth because of this infection. But Lord, I know that you have won the battle, and that if we belong to you, there is no losing that battle. And that our ultimate victory is not in this world, it's in the world to come. And Lord, we all look forward to that, but we also realize that every moment that you give us here is precious. It's precious so that we can make a difference for your kingdom. Help us to do that, Lord. Give us that peace that transcends all understanding that you've promised through prayer. I pray that faith is strengthened, that our faith is courageous, and that our love is strong as we go through this. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.